everybody, and welcome to NAMI Tennessee's NAMI at Home Facebook Live series. Before we get started, we want to remind everybody that it's National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, and you can learn so much by going over to NAMI.org. Right on the front page, there's a little button that says Learn More. Click it. Tons of pages about the history, what you can do in your own community, and how to participate. And also, if you are on the NAMI Tennessee email list, I know I do this every week, it's my favorite part. If you sign up for the email list, we send you information, including information about National Minority Health Month, including information about the Facebook Lives, including articles and website. It is the coolest email list that NAMI Tennessee puts out. I can say that with absolute certainty. Just go to namitn.org and sign up now. We have a great show for you surrounding mental health and insurance. And we don't have one guest. We don't have two guests. We have three guests. It is a packed house, everybody. Are we all excited to be here?
Yes.
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 All right. Well, let's get to it. Alisa, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, Gabe. My name is Alisa LaPolt, and I'm the Policy and Advocacy Director for NAMI Tennessee. And mental health insurance and coverage is a critical issue for us, and we're so happy to be here today with people from the Department of Commerce and Insurance. NAMI Tennessee has been working on legislation around this for years, and so we're very happy to be working in hand with the department, and hope you all get to learn a lot from us today.
Well, thank you so much. All right, Jennifer, I'm looking for your magic button to pop you up. Jennifer, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Ramcharan. I am the Outreach Specialist for the Insurance Division of the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance. So basically, my job is to try to get as much education about insurance out there to all Tennesseans as possible, and try to connect with other organizations like NAMI. So thank you so much for having us here.
Well, we are very excited that you're here. And last but certainly not least, Vickie, please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Vickie Trice, and I am Director of the Consumer Insurance Services area with the Tennessee Department of Insurance. And my team, I have a team of life and health and property and casualty investigators, and we mediate complaints for the entire state of Tennessee.
Well, all of you, big round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. Now, here's how this works. We have a whole stack of questions to get through that people have submitted throughout the last week. But if you didn't submit a question, don't worry, you didn't miss out. You can still submit a question right in the comment section. Just type it in. Shorter questions tend to work better because we can throw them right up on the screen, and we will pose them to our panel later on in the show. Super easy, right? All right, let's jump into it. Question number one. What do we need to know when it comes to mental health and insurance?
Well, simply, I think that people just need to be aware that there is health insurance coverage of mental health and some substance abuse treatment. You know, I think that a lot of people don't understand that there is any sort of financial help when it comes to that. And so that really prevents them from trying to get any help. And so we're just here, you know, primarily to say that there is mental health coverage, and we're going to get into that and how it all works and everything. But please, if you have any issues, whether it's physical health, mental health, go see a professional. It is so important. Mental health is just as important as physical health.
Thank you so much. Any of our other panelists have any information they wish to share?
Yeah, I'd like to jump in and say, so oftentimes people think of mental illness being a separate illness from physical illness, when really it's all one body. It's just a condition that takes place up here in the head. And in the past, insurance has treated mental illness a bit differently than physical illness. And that's where there have been some issues with how health insurance covers treatment. In the past, and even still today, mental health services and treatment have been treated one way, covered one way, and physical health another way. And we'll get into that a little later in the discussion.
It's very interesting. So one of the things that we're talking about, I think many people are aware that mental health is covered. There's problems with the coverage, but I think that many people are aware that they have like a mental health section of their health insurance plan. But one of the things that people notice right off the bat is, okay, so let's say that you break your leg. You are under a doctor's care until your leg is unbroken. But if you have a mental health issue, you get 6 visits, or you get 8 visits, or you can go for 3 weeks, and you have to, there seems to be this extra set of restrictions, like they're trying to determine today how long you're allowed to be sick. And the solution to that, because we've deemed that it's unfair, is something called parity. Can you explain what parity is in mental health?
So parity basically means that if your health insurance covers anything for physical health, then they have to offer those same coverages for mental health. It's exactly what it says it is. It's parity, meaning the same.
The question I think that would maybe resonate with most people is, well, how does therapy, for example, like I want to go to a therapist and talk about, grief or depression or, some mental health crisis that I'm having. How does that line up on the physical side? Is it the equivalent to like the broken leg and you need rehab, or rehabilitation, like where they teach you to walk again or exercise the leg? How do those things I've got it. How do those two things specifically line up to compare mental health and physical health? Because they seem so vastly different.
It's kind of like seeing a doctor. So like if you have a copay to go see your doctor for you not feeling good, let's say your copay is $30, then, if you're going to go see a therapist, is you pay a copay and you go see the therapist. Vickie, do you have anything to add?
No, that you're right. That's exactly what it is. And you can look at it, if they allow 30 physical therapy visits a year, they would have to allow that same amount of visits for mental health issues as well. So it's the same. It has to be the same. There has to be parity there.
It makes perfect sense. I am on the Alisa train because I don't get it. We've got mental health and physical health, but it's all the same person. Like, who decided that those were two separate things? It's a bit like saying, your kitchen, that's not part of your house. That's different. But it's in my house. No, kitchens are different. Your house is the bedrooms, the living room, but your kitchen's not part of your house. That falls under cooking establishment. It's always been weird to me, but we've accepted it for so long. Are parity laws everywhere? Are they just in Tennessee? Are they catching on? Is there history behind this? I'm really trying hard to say who the heck thought this was a good idea to separate the two out. But what's the history here?
This has been going on since as far back as 1996, when legislation was first passed in Congress that says that health plans can't put lifetime limits on mental health care. Because like in the past, like if you were institutionalized or put in a hospital for a mental illness, health insurance plans were actually allowed to limit that for your entire life, but not have those same limits on a hospitalization for cancer or leukemia or something like that. So in 1996, Congress said, okay, we're not going to allow this anymore. So that practice is going to end. The key legislation passed in 2008, and it is the mental health, let me get this, it's the Mental Health Parity Act, basically. And it says that if you are a health plan that offers mental health insurance, you've got to do that on par, parity, with physical health. Now, the key is that it doesn't apply to every health plan. It only applies to those large group plans, and it doesn't apply to the majority of Americans who are on plans with 50 employees or less. But that was passed in 2008 by Congress, and that was the critical point in this whole discussion. But now it's 2021, and we're still fighting this issue. There has been legislation passed in Congress again, just at the end of the Trump administration, that requires health plans to report how they're complying with the Parity Act. And when I say parity, this is for mental health and substance abuse, okay? How they're supposed to report to the federal government how they're complying with that. And then in Tennessee, just this past legislative session, our legislature passed a bill saying that the Department of Commerce and Insurance, our friends here with us today, they will be pulling down those reports from the federal government and sharing them with the Tennessee legislature to show how Tennessee health plans are complying with the law.
Are you seeing progress in this? I mean, something's had to happen I graduated high school in 1996. So from the time I graduated high school to now, a lot has changed in the world, in my life. Do we have any movement in this, or are we stuck exactly where we were in 1996?
Go ahead, Vickie.
Well, you can go ahead, Jennifer. You can go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that when the Affordable Care Act came into play, I know that that was really like enforced, and that was put as part of the health plans, is you have to have the mental health coverage as well. And so, there was that step, and we also added, I think it was in 2008 that they added the substance use coverage as well. So there have been movements. I think that mental health, common knowledge about mental health has become a little bit greater. So we're getting there. And there's always improvement, of course, to be had. But yeah, there have been some steps taken. Vickie, do you have anything to add?
No, I just wanted to say, just like Alisa pointed out, that it is just the major medical plans that have to abide by the parity laws that are in place. The short-term limited duration plans do not. So, we have to keep that in mind for people that seek insurance coverage, to make sure that if they need mental health services, that they get a plan that covers mental health.
One of the things that I think that many people don't understand is when you say things like, I have excellent health insurance, right? And we do this commonly. We brag about it. Oh, I got a new job. Oh, excellent benefits. Well, but that means that somebody has bad benefits, right? If everybody had the same benefits, we just say, I have benefits. That's the end of it. So by definition, if somebody has excellent benefits, somebody has bad benefits. Or is that sort of what it is? If you work for this, gigantic company, my wife works for the federal government, and her health insurance is leaps and bounds above my sister, who works for a smaller company. Is this what we're seeing? Because I imagine that not everybody works for a Fortune 500 company. In fact, I would imagine that most people are employed not by giant companies. This is a really big problem, right?
Well, I mean, I can tell you what a good health insurance plan looks like when it comes to mental health coverage, when they're abiding by the parity laws. What it looks like to you as the policyholder is they cover inpatient, in-network, and out-of-network. This is for mental health or physical health. Emergency care, prescription drugs. Deductibles should be the same, and this is important. Co-pays should also be the same. Co-pays should not be more just for mental health services. Intensive outpatient services would be similar. And so that's what a good health plan would look like.
Now, I understand when it comes to figuring out what exactly parity is, there's a little video. Is it time for the video?
Sure,
Yeah,
we can go ahead and play that.
I'm excited for the video. Everybody can tell. Like I'm ready to see the video. All right, here we go, everyone.
Caring for emotional, psychological, and mental well-being is just as important as caring for a physical injury. The Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance reminds Tennesseans that their mental health and addiction issues should be treated the same as their physical health needs by their insurance provider. Under the Mental Health Parity and Addiction Equity Act of 2008, if a consumer's health plan covers mental health and substance use services, the plan must match its coverage with the plan's physical health coverage. If you need treatment for substance use or mental health, your health insurance may cover some of the cost. This means the copay, number of days for staying in a hospital or treatment facility, prior authorization, prescription drug tiers, and maximum benefit limits must be the same for both mental health and physical health services. For example, if your copay is $30 for physical health services, it must be $30 for mental health services. Mental health and substance use treatment include therapy, inpatient and outpatient treatment, medication management for detoxing and mental health disorders such as depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and psychotic disorder, applied behavioral analysis for the treatment of autism spectrum disorder, and more. Your health plan must provide a directory of in-network professionals and facilities that are close to you. The law does not provide payments if the provider does not accept insurance. If the provider does not accept insurance, then the patient would need to find a provider who does take insurance or pay for the services out of pocket. Denied a claim or experiencing delays in having your claim accepted? Contact TDCI Consumer Insurance Services at 615-741-2218 or 1-800-342-4029. You can file a complaint by visiting tn.gov/insurance and selecting File a Complaint. Some health plans are federally regulated by the U.S. Department of Labor. To file a complaint for a federally regulated plan, visit www.askebsa.dol.gov or call 1-866-444-3272. To get more information about mental health parity or to get information about our mission to help Tennessee insurance consumers, visit tn.gov/insurance today.
Thank you so very, very much for that. And everybody watching, I put the link to the YouTube video down in the comment section in the chat so you can watch it whenever you would like. Does anybody have any information? Whoop, it would help if I turned off this over here. All right. Does anybody have any information about that video that they'd like to add to it? I mean, the video is excellent. It kind of speaks for itself.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. We were really excited at NAMI Tennessee to see this video. We have been working with a coalition of other organizations, TADIS, the Behavioral Health Foundation, Mental Health America, for several years on parity laws here in Tennessee, as well as outreach and education efforts. So when we learned about this video, we were all emailing each other and we posted it on Facebook. So thank you to the department for doing this.
Big round of applause for the department.
Yeah, our communications team worked on this along with me and Vickie, and so it was a group effort. So yeah, they did a really, really good job. And just a quick plug, we are on YouTube and we have a lot of educational videos about all kinds of insurance topics. So check us out, Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance. Just search that in YouTube. We have lots of really, really great videos.
That is awesome. Thank you all so much. All right, everybody, I want to remind you that if you have any questions, please drop them into the comments and we will pop them on the screen and our esteemed panel will answer as many as they can. Don't be shy. All right, let's grab the next question here. All right. How do people know if their insurance plans aren't following parity laws?
Usually because their claims are being denied. Something, they're trying to seek treatment and they're getting delayed or denied or something's going on and they can, they realize that something's going on with their carrier.
Aside from that, are there other ways to check? I imagine that somebody watching this that there's always the crisis point, right? It's everybody who has ever been, like you said, denied or can't afford care. They're realizing that something's wrong. But an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. If somebody's sitting here thinking to themselves, I have no idea. I don't know if this is good or not. How would they go about finding out? Because I imagine they can't just call up their insurance company and say, hey, you being fair? Is this cool? Parity? So what should they look for?
Well, I'm sorry. They probably should check their policy language. I would say one of the first things to do, because everything that's covered and or not covered is going to be listed in the insurance policy. So that would probably be my first choice, would be to look at the policy language and see what's covered and what's not covered.
Awesome.
I would
Thank you.
also like to say that if people are concerned or have questions, they're not sure if that's really right, what their insurance company is doing is right, then they can contact Vickie's team. We can put the phone number up at the end, but they do a lot of phone calls where they just answer questions about all kinds of insurance topics, and whether it's health insurance or other kinds of insurance. But that's what they do. They're there to help answer questions and help get education to Tennesseans.
Thank you so very much. We have a question that came in from YouTube, and those I can't pop up on the screen, but I can type them really, really fast, and they will have all kinds of typos in it. But the question specifically, aside from claims being denied, what are some common violations that people see?
I can answer that. And as far as how people know, that's something that NAMI Tennessee is going to be working on, ramping up our efforts big time, again, with the coalition of other groups that we work with statewide, educating people on what a parity violation looks like. And I'll give you some examples. You have to call and get special permission, sometimes called prior authorization, for a mental health service, but not for physical health services. Another violation is you can't find any in-network therapists, psychiatrists. And then another one is you have higher costs or fewer visits for mental health services than for other kinds of healthcare.
Thank you so much. Another follow-up question to that is it a parity violation if my loved one is being discharged from the hospital and they're not ready? I know that's a big one.
Not necessarily. Yeah. I know it gets a little complicated, but if the policy is 30 days or whatever it is, then that's what it is. And so I know it gets unfortunate. And of course, if you have questions and concerns, of course, again, call us, call our Consumer Insurance Services team, and we'll try to help you out as best we can. But yeah, they can stick to the policy. So if it's 30 days, it's 30 days.
What is that number? I can pop it on the screen if you give it to me right now.
615-741-2218.
741
2218.
2218. And the name of that line is I don't want to call it the violations line.
It's the Consumer Insurance Services section.
Consumer Insurance
Services. Yep.
There we go. I just put that number on the screen. So please, if you have any questions about violations, call that number. And now, do Vickie and Jennifer answer the phone? Like, I'm very excited.
Vickie does answer phone calls from time to time. They usually get bumped up, but usually I have a team of investigators, and they are wonderful. They know the laws and what is right and what's wrong and what the plans are supposed to be doing. So they're usually pretty capable of handling those calls.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, the next question is, can you tell us what the department is doing around parity? And I know you're doing a lot, so we've blocked off like a solid half hour for this. No, but sincerely, what is the department doing to help us move down the road? Because like you said, it's been 25 years.
Jennifer?
Yeah. So there's a few different things. So basically, as the regulators, we want to make sure that the insurance companies are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, for example, they have to turn in policies to our department, and our policy analysis team looks over them, makes sure that everything is legal, everything is up to Tennessee statutes, like everything looks good. So if they catch a flaw in the policy where it's not hitting parity, then our team goes back to the insurance company and says, hey, no, you can't do this. You have to fix this. Like, this has to be the same. They'll talk about the issue and they'll get it right. So that's one area where we're working on that. Our examinations team, company examinations, they actually go to insurance companies in Tennessee, and they look at the numbers, look at the books, make sure that everything is correct financially, make sure that they're doing everything right by that. And so, they are also investigating and making sure that the companies are doing everything they need to do when it comes to mental health parity. Let's see. And And then, of course, Vickie's team, they take in complaints, they take in the data. They are very data-based. I love Vickie's team. They take in all the complaints, and, you know, if complaints come in about mental health issues, and sometimes that's even not from just consumers, sometimes that's from doctors,
Right.
you know, from providers, and they're having issues with insurance companies. And so they take all that information down, and, you know, so I can ask Vickie, hey, how many mental health related complaints have we had in the past 2 years? And she can look up that data and give that to us. So we, you know, take inventory of all of that as well. Vickie, I'm sure I'm missing something.
Yeah, I was
Of?
thinking about the like the information that we're posting on the website, and those types of things, like the video and that we did. And I think you all are going to do an actual section on the website concerning mental health parity. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we are working on redoing the consumer education portion of our website, of the insurance part of the website at least. And we're going to kind of split it up into sections. And so our health insurance section will have some more information about mental health as well. You know, yeah, I know that we are really working on getting more education out there, doing more research, or excuse me, more outreach on this topic as well. So that's really important to the department. I know that we have a report due to legislature, I think in January.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in January, that also lists kind of, you know, everything that we're doing and what we're seeing and all this information as well. So yeah, we're doing a lot. We're trying to make sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
I have the exact same question, except what is NAMI Tennessee doing surrounding parity and mental health? And obviously that goes to Alisa.
Yes, thank you. In 2016, we were funded by the Healing Trust to create outreach and education, and we've been working on that ever since. We have a website that we've developed. It's called the Tennessee Parity Project, and that is tnparityproject.org. And on there, you will find some common violations of what a parity discrimination would be, and also information on how to file a complaint. Now, because there's been a lot of movement in the past 6 months, really, on this issue, both at the congressional level and the state level, we are ramping up our efforts, and I will be doing some training along with some of my colleagues around the state on what a parity violation looks like. And also, we just want to let you know that you can always call us at NAMI Tennessee on our helpline, and we can try to walk you through what to do. One of the things that we advise people to do is first try to work it out through your insurance plan, especially if you've been denied care. Ask for the policy, and then if you're not getting any relief there, then you can kick up your concerns and complaints to the department as they were outlining.
Thank you so much. A question popped in that I think is very interesting, especially for folks at NAMI, because we have a lot of caregivers who are helping people manage severe and persistent mental illness. And the question was, can a family member make a parity complaint on behalf of their loved ones?
To the Tennessee Department of Insurance, yes, they can. We will have to handle the complaint like for the person that actually has the policy, because the company's not going to release any information to someone that's not an actual party to the policy. But they can file on behalf of the person, and we can kind of take it and oversee it and, you know, try to get it resolved.
Have you had experience with that in the past? I mean, is that commonplace? Does it happen a lot? Is it rare?
It does happen sometimes that the person that actually has the policy is not able to actually file the complaint on their behalf, and so either a family member or a caregiver will file for them, and we just, like I said, we just work it through. The company will respond to us for anything that we request from the company. So there may be some information that we won't be able to actually provide to the caregiver. It just depends on what the issues are and how the company responds to it.
Thank you so very much. One of the things that's sort of going through my mind is the idea that you have to have in-network providers, but pardon me while I muddle through trying to word this question. But there's two steps to having an inpatient provider. There's obviously the insurance company covering it, and I think we all can understand that. But the second one is that the provider has to be willing to take that insurance. I'm thinking of like rural areas that maybe only have 2 or 3 providers, and maybe those providers are unwilling to take XYZ insurance. Doesn't that mean that the insurance company is in violation of parity through no fault of their own? How do we resolve that? And I understand that's probably like a rare scenario, but it's probably come up.
So the insurance company actually wouldn't be in violation if the provider is not accepting insurance. I mean, they can't force a provider to contract with them. There's no law that says that you have to contract with a certain company or whatever. So, if the provider decides that they don't want to, deal with insurance or whatever, then that's going to fall back on that patient, basically. Now, the patient can still file the claim to the insurance company to try to get payment for it, but it's going to be considered out of network because they're not accepting any insurance. So the payment's going to be a little bit lower than normal.
So I imagine that if I'm understanding this correctly, I'm just thinking I've heard of areas that have no providers. It's
Yes.
a big mental health advocacy point.
Yes.
So
yes.
You have insurance, you've done everything right. The insurance company is providing parity. Like we're firing on all cylinders, and then the specific mental health provider that you need is just not available in that area. On one hand, okay, so that's a mental health advocacy problem. That's not a parity problem. But on the other hand, let's say that there are providers in that area. The insurance company just hasn't made an offer to them that the provider is willing to accept. Who wins? I mean, if there's a provider there, you could say, hey, the insurance company has to pay that provider what they charge. They're the only one there. But I imagine that's not legal.
So basically what happens, Gabe, in situations like that is that if there's not a provider within 50 miles of where the patient lives, then they're allowed to see an out-of-network provider, and that carrier is going to pay that at the in-network rate, because it's not the patient's fault that they can't find an in-network provider where they are. So that's typically what happens when those types of situations occur. But, like I said, there's nothing that can force a provider to, contract with an insurer. If, that's totally left up between the provider and that insurance carrier. So
it's just another barrier to care. I mean,
yes.
Parity issues aside, it's an advocacy point that I know NAMI Tennessee has worked on for years. Access to care is a huge problem. It just, I think for many people watching, we always have this, do you have a payer source? Yes. Okay, you're doing excellent. And now with this parity conversation, we're like, do you have a payer source? Okay, is it a good one? It's sort of shift the focus a little. It used to be, get insurance and you'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's get insurance and maybe.
Yep.
What do we do as a group? Because we just want to be well, right? We're not trying to become insurance experts here.
Right, and part of this discussion is reimbursement rates for providers. I mean, it is a parity violation if you are paying physical health providers one fee and your mental health providers a far lesser fee. That's a parity violation. That's not something your average policyholder is going to know. Mm-hmm. That's something that insurance regulators would have to dig down deeper to find out. Mm-hmm. Now, I have worked on Medicaid legislation in other states where there has been patient to provider ratios. So like one provider per 1,500 patients. And I don't know what that is here in Tennessee with TennCare, but NAMI Tennessee has been involved with legislation. We were involved last year, and certainly in discussions now around legislation called network adequacy. And that is holding the insurance plans accountable for having the providers, if they're going to sell an insurance policy to a consumer, it is their responsibility to have those providers available. They can't just take the premiums and not provide the service. And again, NAMI, that's one of our advocacy points, access to care. So yes, I mean, some people might say it's not the insurance plan's fault. I look at it from a consumer view and say it's their responsibility. So.
That's wonderful. The next question I have, or the next question that was posted, or that's been asked, and again, I'm going to try to shorten it and probably fail miserably. But the question becomes, how do you know if the hospitalization is being denied because of all the advocacy that we've already done? I mean, we've heard about people who need care that simply cannot get it, or if their access to care is being denied because of a parity. It creates this sort of, we know there's a problem, but we haven't decided who's at fault yet. Do you have any thoughts on that? That's the specific question.
I do. A lot of this discussion, and this also speaks to the question that was asked earlier about somebody being released from the hospital when they're not ready. It comes down to medical necessity. And medical necessity is what insurance plans look for when they approve or deny care. Is it medically necessary for somebody to get a cast on a broken arm? I'd say yes. Is it medically necessary for somebody to have cosmetic surgery on their eyes? No, that's not a medically necessary service that insurance would cover. So that it all comes down to what is medically necessary. So that's where the fight comes in between the doctors or the health providers and the insurance plan. The healthcare provider says it is medically necessary for this person to have 15 visits for, I'm just going to say, substance use disorder. And the insurance plan gets to decide whether that's medically necessary or not. And where things get really tricky is how do the insurance plans themselves define medical necessity? And that was the subject of a really important lawsuit and court ruling in 2019. And it's known as Witt versus United Behavioral Health. Because United Behavioral Health, which is the country's largest insurer for behavioral health services, a U.S. court found that they fell short on 6 standards of care called generally accepted standards of care. For example, they were saying it was not, and I'm paraphrasing here, they were saying that it was not medically necessary for somebody to be hospitalized in like an intensive outpatient care, and they were instead approving a lesser restrictive care. Okay, even when the doctors were saying it's medically necessary for this intensive outpatient care. So medical necessity was here, but United Behavioral Health was saying, no, we're gonna just put them here in this lesser care. That was a parity violation. So the court had to dig down and look at the United Behavioral Health's own policies, own internal policies for what was medically necessary. And that is where the crux of this often lies. And again, that's not up to the policymaker. That's where things get really confusing. But when you start digging down into what is medical necessity and how it's defined in the insurance plan, that's where it's super important to look at from a policy standpoint.
Thank you so much. Did the, and you may not know off the top of your head, but the lawsuit in 2019, were the people impacted by it compensated? And I know that they didn't want compensated, but does it have a happy ending, or is it just a shame on you, but the people who were actually impacted still didn't get care?
Well, the court ruled that they were to be compensated, and it was millions of dollars, and I don't have that answer at the top of my head right now. It was a landmark decision that now other states I think California was one, have put into their own state laws saying, here are the 6 standards of care that mental health coverage must cover. You can't just cover somebody to get them stable if they're suicidal. You've got to get them care for getting beyond that crisis and then maintaining and becoming fully functional. So it's not just crisis coverage, it's longer term care. And that's one of the standards of care. So there has been an appeal to that ruling because it was millions of dollars. And that United Behavioral Health did file an appeal in March. And so, that's still in the works.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have a question from the audience, and it did make me chuckle a little bit. It said, why did the government create parity and then ignore it? Who wants to tackle that question? And thank you, Deborah.
I'm thinking I might be better since the other 2 people work for the government.
Maybe she should have wanted the federal government create parity and then ignore it. And remember, lay people ask questions and we told them to be short. Maybe a better wording of the question would be, why did they see the need to create parity but not see the need to, 25 years is a long time. I mean, it's a third of the average lifespan. I mean, they saw the need to create it and codify it into law, but they didn't see the need to enforce it, at least not to the rigorous standards that we would like and that we would expect. And that's interesting. Is there a backstory to why they would, again, I know ignore is a very strong word in government, so, but it does seem like it's languished for a very long time.
I would say they haven't ignored it. It's been really fascinating to watch the development of this over those years. As I mentioned earlier, at the end of the Trump administration, there was actually legislation passed requiring the health plans that are covered by the parity law, to report how they're complying with the law, either to the U.S. Department of Labor or Health and Human Services. It depends on what kind of health plan they are. And so that was, the end of 2019. So in 2010, when the Affordable Care Act was passed, then there were some additional coverages added at that point and in the Affordable Care Act plans. So it has been in the works incrementally year after year after year. And I think why we've seen so much activity is because now I think we can all agree that mental health, the needs for mental health treatment and coverage is skyrocketing, because of the pandemic and the stressors there. So as we are, as consumers, wanting to have coverage for these services, as healthcare providers provide those coverage, the pressure is now on the insurance plans and for the policymakers to make sure the insurance companies are following the law.
Makes perfect sense. So it sounds like we're just impatient. I don't mean that. That came out very wrong. But the government moves slowly, is what we're hearing. And now, Vickie and Jennifer, you work for the government, so you should defend yourselves. This has become mental health advocacy death match. I don't know how that happened. We're all in claymation now. Sincerely, I know that mental health advocates, we're used to being told to wait, and that's very, very difficult, especially when you're sick or your loved one's sick, and the last thing that we want to do is wait. So it's easy for I think anybody to look at it and think, isn't 25 years enough? But Alisa, thank you for your feedback. Jennifer and Vickie, do you have anything to add?
Well, as the regulator, a big part of our responsibility is to ensure that the companies are abiding by the Tennessee insurance laws and abiding by the terms of the policies that they write. So anytime my complaint data goes everywhere within the office. We send it to the financial folks, the examinations team, everybody looks at the complaint data. Usually that's our first sign that there may be something going on with the company, because we start getting a lot of complaints on one particular company. They may not be paying any claims, or they're stalling or delaying or underpaying claims or whatever. And we send that information up. We want to make sure everybody's aware of what's going on. And we are very proactive when those types of things happen. So we are there to, our job is to assist consumers to make sure that they're being treated fairly. We return over $10 million of restitution just in 2020. So we do a good job of holding those companies accountable for what they're doing.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vickie. Jennifer, did you have anything to add? I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that's why it is so important for Tennesseans to file complaints with us, because that's really a lot of the times how we know that insurance companies are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. We try our best. We look at the policies, we look at the numbers, we try, to prevent anything bad from happening. But really, we need boots on the ground. We need you guys, Tennesseans, to say, hey, my insurance company is, not denying my claim, and I don't really understand why. And so that's why it's important for you to file a complaint to the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance, and Vickie's team will look at it and see what's going on and try to come to some sort of resolution. So please, please, please understand that we can help, or at least we can try.
That is wonderful. Now, I hear that we're having a small technical glitch. Hopefully, it will all catch back up in a moment. So we are going to continue as if Facebook is gonna fix it, because we believe in Facebook. So we're nearing the end of the show. So if anybody has any questions and you would like to wait to the last minute, we're here. We're at the last minute. So please drop your questions into the comments. The Consumer Insurance Services hotline is 615-741-2218. And of course, we've dropped it right in there. And we have provided as much information as humanly possible. We have gotten through all the questions. Here, this is sort of open-ended for the three of you. What information do you want you want everybody to know? And Jennifer, I love what you said. You've got to report it, right? If you don't know it, you can't fix it. But it sounds like you have information that you want everybody to know, Jennifer. So I'll let you go first.
Yes, I actually want to send it over to Vickie. Vickie, if you could please explain the complaint process and how it all works, I think that would be really good.
Sure. So the complaint process actually is very, very simple. My complaint form is online. It's at www.tn.gov/insurance, and just look for file a complaint. Once you click on that, the complaint form is going to open up. You just fill all the information out. There's a button at the bottom where you submit it back. It comes straight back into the office, into my complaint database. It gets assigned to an investigator depending on the line of insurance. And then that investigator starts working that file. The complaints are coded with specific reason, coverage, and disposition codes. So we will know everything from start to finish, what goes on with that complaint when it comes in, what the issue is, what the expectations are from the consumer. We send letters out to the consumer to let them know that we did receive it, and we explain what our process is. And at that point, we also send the letter to the insurance company to get to hear their side of the story. And we always make sure people understand that as a mediator, we have to hear both sides of the story. We have to get the full picture to kind of figure out what needs to be done. The companies have 30 days by law in which to respond to my complaints. If they don't respond within that 30-day period, we can fine that company $100 per day for every day over the 30 days that they don't respond. So they're very good about responding to the department, and we can ask them for whatever we need, a copy of the policy, any notes, anything. If the medical director made a determination, we want to see what information he used to make that determination. Whatever we need to thoroughly investigate that complaint, we ask for it, and they have to provide it to us. And most of my complaints are handled within 30 to 45 days from start to finish. We have some that sometimes will go over, but it's a very efficient process. And like I said, it really works for us because that information and that data that comes in, it helps the entire department.
I don't know, again, this might be one of those things that you don't have off the top of your head, but when folks are filing complaints, how often are they successful? How often have they hit the nail on the head that something was wrong and that your department was able to help them fix it?
So our complaints, either end up being confirmed or non-confirmed. And that determination is based on whether we find out whether the company violated any laws or violated any of the terms of the policy. And I don't have that information right off the top of my head to give you, but like I said, we do provide a lot of restitution back to Tennessee residents. So the process, it's a workable and doable process.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. There is Deborah had another question real quick, and I know we sort of addressed it a little bit at the beginning of the show, but I think it's certainly worthy of addressing again. What are some red flags that should tell a consumer right away that there is something wrong?
Yeah, I think Vickie mentioned that earlier. When you start seeing denials of service, that would be the first red flag. If you would like to do a little bit of your own research and dig a little further, please go to the Tennessee Parity Project website at tnparityproject.org. We will be spending the summer and most of the fall on a campaign to educate people such as yourself, Deborah, about what to look for with potential insurance violations.
Wonderful. And I am typing in that website right now to pop it up. It's tnparityproject.com.
.org.
.org. Thank you. That is the #1 mistake that Gabe Howard makes on this show. I get all the orgs and .coms wrong. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I cannot thank you enough. Please visit tnparityproject.org. If you feel that something is wrong, if you have a situation, if you have a complaint, if you need help, please call the Consumer Insurance Services number. I've dropped a link to What is Parity video into the comment box, so please find that, or when this is over, you can just hit rewind for about 45 minutes, and then you, of course, will see it. Panel, thank you so very much. Are there any last words? No, they're awesome.
I would just like to thank you, Gabe, for hosting. You always do a great job. And also thank Vickie and Jennifer and the commissioner, because we've seen some really positive movement in the past 6 months in response to everything that's going on in Congress and here. And just making it easier for people to file complaints has been monumental for us. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. And listen up to our listeners. Don't forget that it is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. If you go over to NAMI.org, right on the front page, you click a little button to learn more. I was going to give everybody the direct link, but there's so many letters. You'd be typing for an hour and a half. Of course, you can also sign up for our email list at namitn.org, and you'll get all kinds of information, not just about these lives and Minority Mental Health Month, but everything that's going on in the state of Tennessee as it pertains to mental health. Big round of applause to our guests. Thank you all so much for being here. You were all awesome. All right, big waves, everybody.